Hi, it's Alaska Granny. Today I wanted to share with you some ideas about budget-friendly food for preppers. Whether you're just getting started or you want to add to your food storage, here are some cheap and easy foods that you can add to your food stockpile no matter what kind of a budget you're on. It's important to have food and supplies on hand because we don't know going forward what the future holds, and we want to make sure that we always have the food that we need. So stockpiling it while things are readily available just makes sense. All of these foods that I'm going to share with you today have a long shelf life, and they can last for years and years. Foods need to be stored correctly so that they'll last as long as possible. That means you need to package them correctly so that the air can't dry them out and that pests can't get into them. A great way to store these foods that I like to use is canning jars. Canning jars are a convenient size. They're something that are readily available. You can pick them up at the grocery store, the hardware stores even sometimes. You can find them at thrift stores, and maybe you already have a supply of them. Then you need properly fitting lids. You can find lids that are plastic. These are nice because they're easy off and on, but these are not good for long-term storage. If you want to put something in that you're going to be using it frequently in your pantry, then this works well. For long-term food storage, you want to use the lids and the rings. The lids have a rubber gasket. It'll seal right on there. You can screw this on. You can add an oxygen absorber. You can seal the jar with your food saver jar lid attachment, or you can just screw the lid on, and it's much better than the way these foods come packaged from the grocery store. They're still going to last a long time just by adding a jar lid and a ring. Screw it down tight, put it away in a cool, dry place, and your food is going to last. The first food I recommend is white rice. Stick with white rice. Brown rice has natural oils in it which degrade over time, turn rancid, and your rice won't last. White rice stored correctly can last for decades. It's also one of the foundations of having a long-term food storage simply because it's a versatile food that's eaten all around the world. It's easy to prepare. Most people are able to eat it without having any kind of food allergies. You can purchase rice from a 1-pound bag up to a 50-pound bag, depending on how much you'd like, and then you can easily store it away in usable sized containers with canning jars. You can easily use up the amount in a jar without having to open, say, a 5-gallon bucket with 50 pounds of rice. A 5-gallon bucket with 50 pounds is not easy to move around, and it's not in a size that most people want to open it and then need to use it. You'd have to deal with it then and reseal it up into sizes that are useful. So start with sizes that are useful with a canning jar. The next food is beans. You can buy all different types of beans, from pinto beans, navy beans, kidney beans, split peas, all kinds of different. Get a variety of the beans that you enjoy and you know how to cook and your family enjoys eating. Beans are also easy to store in a canning jar. Put on the lid, screw on the ring, and it's been sealed up. You can set it away in your pantry. It's in a size that's easy to rotate and incorporate into your meal plan. The next food is oatmeal. Oatmeal is inexpensive to buy, packed with nutrition, and it's simple to store for years at a time. One large box of oatmeal fits in 3 quart-size canning jars. Oatmeal is great to have on hand for easy breakfast, and it also can be incorporated into your other recipes and meals. Pasta. Pasta lasts for years, but not if you store it in just the plastic wrapper cardboard box. Things are going to get into it. You want to keep pests out of your food storage. You may have said, well, I've never had a problem before, but you don't want to go down there next week and find out now that you do. So the best way is to put it away carefully, seal out the air, seal out the insects, seal out any little chewing rodents by storing your pasta correctly. There are all kinds of shapes and interesting varieties in pastas, but the easiest thing that I think to store is spaghetti or angel hair or linguine, simply because it's long and straight. You can put lots and lots of it into a canning jar. Smaller pastas also take less cooking time than larger shapes. Look, for example, at how much spaghetti fits in this jar compared to interesting shaped pastas or noodles in this jar. This one has about 5 times as much in the same amount of space. So if space is a concern, make sure that you're making smart choices with the food so that they fit correctly into your pantry. The next item is sugar. Sugar can store for years and years, but you need to keep the air out. The enemy of white sugar is moisture. Store your sugar in an airtight container, absolutely, because it can absorb even the humidity in the air and any condensation from cooking in your kitchen. If you've ever had your sugar turn hard, that's from the moisture that it gathered from the air. So if you store it airtight, then the condensation and the moisture can't get in and make your sugar hard. It's still good to eat, but it certainly makes it harder to use. The next budget-friendly food item is salt. Salt is something that we must have in our diet. We don't tend to want to put the salt shaker out anymore because we eat so much processed food. The foods are already loaded with salt. But if we were to just be eating natural foods, it doesn't contain that high salt content, and so then we would need to add salt to our foods to keep our health up. Salt is also very useful for lots of things, such as canning, preserving meats, first aid. There's all kinds of things you can use with salt. I made a video about salt. I'll put a link to it so you can see more about it if you're interested in it. Bouillon cubes are a great choice for your prepping pantry. Along with your bouillon, you may want to add your favorite spices to your food storage so that you can kick it up a notch, vary the flavors of your meals so that they stay interesting. Honey is a fantastic item. It's a little more expensive than other things that we store, but it also is a food that's a forever food. Honey can last forever. When you look for honey, read the label, make sure it says 100% honey. The best honey to choose is as close as you can get to from a farm. It isn't always possible or affordable to choose natural honeys, but you can at least make sure that you're getting 100% pure honey when you buy it in the store. If your honey turns hard, you can soften it in a container of hot water. I'll put a link to a video I made about how to soften your honey if it should become solidified. It's still good to eat. Another good thing about honey is it has all kinds of medicinal effects as well. You can use it to gargle. If you have a sore throat, you can dab a little bit on a wound. It has antibacterial properties in the honey. There's a lot of great things to do with honey, so it should be a must-have in your prepping pantry. Soy sauce is also a great food to put in your budget-friendly food storage. If you're concerned with things like low sodium, gluten-free, look on the labels because you can find soy sauce in varieties that can meet your nutritional needs. All that food isn't going to do you much good if you don't have a stockpile of water. You need to store at least 1 gallon per person per day for a minimum of 3 days. Once you get that amount, try to get water for a week. You can pick it up at the store in 1 gallon containers, bring it home for like $1. You can also refill some clean containers that are food safe that you already have on hand. I'll put a link to a video I did about the containers that would be appropriate to store water. You can also choose to buy larger size containers, but remember, water weighs about 8.5 pounds per gallon. So don't put your water in a container that's so large that then you're not able to move it to where you need it to be. Planning ahead helps our food storage be convenient, useful to us, and helps us smooth over the way for whatever kind of an emergency that we have. Foods are readily available, and so it's a wonderful time to stock up while you can. Prices are going up, and if you've paid attention to the news, there have been some problems with, say, floods in the Midwest. Crops have been lost, prices are going up, food's becoming more scarce. You may have been to the store, as I have lately, and certain kinds of foods are not available. They're just out of stock, and the store said we won't have those for several more weeks. We're not used to those kind of conditions, and we don't know if that's going to be something going forward. The best thing to do is stock up your pantry now with foods that you eat every day. Stockpile some long-term food storage items. Rotate your foods, add to them. Stockpiling and prepping means that you're preparing to make sure that you provide the things you need no matter what comes your way. Stockpile things like your life depends on it, because one day it actually might. Learn more at alaskagranny.com. Please subscribe to the Alaska Granny channel.